Raleigh and I and Gail, I believe. No, Linda, sorry. And this takes place in a kind of a club, if you would call it a club, where people just come and meet and sit around and talk. Hey, buddy, what's happening?
Oh, not much. I just hope I'm not bothering you.
Yeah, I'm always glad to see you. You look a little worried, though. What's wrong?
Well, to tell you the truth, I came here to get some advice from you.
Oh, well, fire away. I'll do my best.
Well, you know Sarah.
Yeah, you two sure pretty much grew up together, didn't you?
Yeah, I think she's really special. I'd like to ask her for a date, but I don't know how. I was hoping you could help me.
Well, if you want to date with her, just ask her.
I'm afraid to. Last time I asked her for a date, she kicked my bike.
Wait a minute. Kicked your bike? Just how old were you?
10. I just asked her if she wanted to go look for spiders, and she said, no way, and kicked my bike and ran off.
But you talk to her all the time. Why haven't you asked her since then?
Well, girls scare me. I get all kind of tongue-tied. I'm afraid I say the wrong thing. You're so good with girls. I was hoping you could help me so I could say the right thing.
Well, I guess I do all right. So tell me, what do you think would be a good thing to say?
Well, I was thinking of being honest and realistic. That would be the easiest way to go. So I thought I might say something like, Sarah, you know you're not getting any younger, and you're probably not going anywhere out with anyone else anyway, and why don't you just go out with me?
I think we could probably fix that pretty good. Women don't like that kind of realism. You need to compliment them. You need to make them feel special. Tell her something that you like about her, and then she'll be more likely to say yes when you ask her for a date.
Well, something I like about her. How about this? Sarah, I've always thought that you had a lot less wrinkles than any other woman your age.
You do need help. Forget about talking about how old she is. Women hate being reminded of their age. She has nice hair. Talk about that. She has beautiful eyes. Talk about them. Let her know you think she's the most special person in the whole world.
Oh, I could never do that. I get confused.
Oh, sure you can. We'll practice. I know. Pretend that I'm Sarah, and yet you're asking me out.
Sarah, your eyes are pretty, and your hair smells good. Would you go out with me?
No. You have to say it like you mean it. It must come from your heart. Here, take my hand. Look me in the eyes. And it'll be more when it comes from your heart. It's good. Now try again.
Well, here goes. You know, we've known each other for a long time. Every time I look at you, I marvel at how wonderful your eyes are, how they seem to look deep into my very heart. I can't get over how great your hair smells. And I think about you, and I want to be with you even when we're apart.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I guess I better leave you two alone.
No, Floyd here was just practicing a part.
Sure.
Okay, Sarah. Floyd has been wanting to ask you out for a long time, but he's too shy. He was afraid you'd say no, so he was practicing what he wanted to say to you.
What? Is this true? Were all those things really about me?
Yes, that's the way I felt about you for a long time. I didn't want you to kick my bike again.
All you had to do was ask. I've been waiting 40 years for you to ask me out.
Oh.
This next one is called We the Jury. How many of you have watched one of those judge shows like Judge Judy on television? Did you ever find that you didn't agree with their verdict? Well, today we're going to give you a chance to make your own verdict. We're going to give you a case and let you guys be the jury. You ready for that? Okay, let's get started. Since you're the jury, you have to do this too. All rise. So you have to get up. You're the jury. If you can get up, get up. If you can't, don't. The 146th session of Small Claims Court is now in session. Judge Barely Lawful presiding. You may be seated. You're all set? Nope. You're the judge. You don't sit and hand up.
Before we get started, I want to remind the jury the duty that you are about to undertake is a very serious matter, one that is not to be taken lightly. You are reminded that you are not to discuss this or any other case with anyone who is not in this courtroom, and you are to refrain from making any judgments until all the evidence has been presented. And what is your name?
Grace Foley, Your Honor.
I have looked over your papers. To put it briefly, so Rusty here can understand, you went out on a date with the defendant. You claim that the date was a flop, you wasted your money, and you want $288 to pay you back. Is this it in a nutshell?
Yes, Your Honor.
And your name?
Maximum, Your Honor.
Mr. Imam, you claim that the plaintiff has such a poor attitude that it was impossible to have a good time. So you are suing her for $175 for the money you spent for the date.
That's correct, Your Honor.
You got that now, Rusty?
Yes, Your Honor.
How long have you known the defendant?
About 6 months.
And how did you meet him?
He was a friend of my best friend. We met at a party that my friend had.
And how often have you seen him in the last 6 months?
I couldn't tell you.
More than 5 times?
Yes,
More than 10 times?
probably.
More than 20 times?
No, I think probably about 12 or 13 times.
Were any of these considered dates?
Oh no, I only had this one date with him. The rest of the time, we just happened to be at the same places at the same time.
Why did it take you 6 months before you finally went on a date?
He asked me several times, but we just couldn't seem to find a good time for both of us.
So explain to me what happened that led up to this case.
I met Max about 6 months ago at that party. Every time I saw him after that, he was always trying to get me to go out with him. He seemed like a nice guy, but we didn't really have much in common. I didn't really feel much attraction to him, so I found excuses not to go out with him. But he never gave up. On June 16th of last year, he told me that he would take me to a fancy restaurant if I would go out with him.
That's a lie, Your Honor.
Quiet, Mr. Imam. I will get to you soon, and you can present your side then. Proceed, Miss Foley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Like I said, he promised me a special date, and I couldn't come up with a good excuse, so I said, okay. The next morning, I realized I really didn't have anything to wear to a fancy restaurant, so I went out and bought a really cute dress and some nice shoes to match it. It was one of those little black dresses, and I really looked good in it. On the day of the date, I made an appointment and got my hair done. I wanted him to be awed by me that night. I got a little worried though when he came to pick me up. He was wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt. I really got upset after that. Instead of a fancy restaurant, he took me to the drag races. I was horribly embarrassed. All the women there were wearing shorts and tennis shoes, and I was wearing a fancy short black dress and high heels. I wanted to sneak out and hide in the car. It was a terrible night. If I'd known where we were going, I would have never bought those clothes, so I think I should get my money back for them.
Okay, Mr. Imam, it's your turn.
Well, I never promised to take her to a fancy restaurant.
Okay, start at the beginning. Did you ask her for a date more than once?
Yes, the first time I met her at a party, I knew I wanted to go out with her, and she was easy to talk to, and she seemed interested in the things I liked. She paid attention when I talked. I'm a car nut. I tend to talk a lot about them, but she always seemed interested. It's unusual. Most girls I knew, so I did ask her for dates every time I saw her. She always turned me down, but I thought I'd keep trying. Finally, she said yes, but I never told her I would take her to a fancy restaurant.
Miss Foley, I want you to tell me exactly what Mr. Imam said when he asked you out for a date.
Yes, Your Honor. He said that if I went out with him, he would take me someplace special and get me some of the best food in the area.
Is this correct, Mr. Imam?
Yes, Your Honor, but I never said anything about a fancy restaurant. She knew I liked cars.
You can't tell me what she knew or didn't know. You can't read her mind.
Yes, Your Honor. Anyway, the finals of the American Hot Rod Drag Races were coming to town, and I thought I'd do something really special and get some good seats at the Strip so that Grace could get the best view of the races. I spent a lot of money on those VIP seats. As for the food, I was going to take her to that food truck that was always in the parking lot. It just won the National Food Truck Competition and has the best coney dogs in the USA. People come for miles just to snack there. I thought I was setting up a great date. But when we got to the track, she realized where we were. She got mad, wouldn't speak to me. She didn't even get to give the date a chance. I ended up having to take her home early, even before the second round. She jumped out of the car and slammed the door and hasn't talked to me since. Not only I didn't get to see all the races that night, I didn't even get to enjoy the ones I did get to see. So I think she should have to pay for the special seats I got for that night.
Miss Foley, I am confused. I would think that one of the first things that a young lady would worry about on a date is what to wear. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then why didn't you ask him what you should wear?
I never thought about it. I just assumed that we were going fancy.
You know what they say about assuming. People of the jury, you have heard the evidence, and it is now time for you to make your decision. You have 4 possible choices. You can find for the plaintiff, you can find for the defendant, you can find for both, or you can throw the case out. It's up to you. Your vote in this case need not be unanimous. The majority wins. Remember, this is a court of law. Do not let your personal prejudices sway you, but make your decision only by what you feel is lawful. I will give you a few minutes to make up your mind. You may discuss it amongst yourselves if you wish. A few minutes pass. Let us vote. Who votes for Miss Foley, the plaintiff?
Ooh. Ooh.
Who votes for Max Imam, the defendant?
We got one over here. 3? Yeah. 2 back.
Who votes for both?
Wishy-washy, wishy-washy.
Who wants to throw it out? Thank you for your service. You are dismissed.
The last time we did this, the Liars Club, and we have a special narrator for this. You're up, okay?
In every town, both large and small across America, there are small family-type restaurants where the locals meet to eat and talk. And every morning at a table, and usually in the back corner of the restaurant, there collects a group of these locals that like to share stories of the past and present while drinking their coffee. We won't pass judgment on the veracity of these stories, but just let's say truth is not always required in these sessions. They are usually called the local Liars Club. You say you've never seen one of these groups? Well, let's join in one now.
Best fish I ever caught, the little lake up in Logan County called Lost Lake. They say it was formed by the Ice Age and it's bottomless. Anyway, the water's crystal clear, very cool, perfect place for fish to grow. About 2 years ago, I was fishing from a small boat near the north end under some trees, and I hooked a bass. I could instantly tell he was a monster. Dragged my boat around like it was a small cork in the water. I fought for what seemed like an hour. Sometimes I'd get it almost to the boat, and then it'd take off like a torpedo, pulling my boat around. I'd have to reel it in again. Finally, I got it to the boat, and I got it in the net, dragged it into the boat, and decided I'd weigh it. So I hooked it onto my scales. It weighed 14 pounds. 14 pounds. A state record bass. I couldn't believe it. But then it happened. That fish gave a big shake and came off the hook and fell right back in the lake. I lost that fish. I lost the record fish. I've fished there a dozen times since. I've never seen that fish again.
Wait a minute. I know that lake. I fished there once, many years ago myself. It was late at night, so I took my favorite gasoline lantern with me. I had fished there for about an hour and caught a nice fish. I got so excited that I accidentally knocked the lantern over the side. There it went, my favorite lantern, deeper and deeper into the water. You could see the light from that lantern getting farther and farther away. Tears came to my eyes. It was the best lantern I ever owned. You know, they say that even now, on really dark nights, you can look into the still water there in that lake and see the light from that lantern at the bottom of that lake.
Wait a dang minute. I don't believe that. There's no way that lantern could still be burning after all these years.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. You knock 10 pounds off of that bass, and I'll blow out the light from my lantern.
Well, that's enough of all your fish stories. Let's get to a real sport. Hunting. You all know I just got back from Alaska, where I went grizzly bear hunting. Now there's a real sport. It takes a lot of nerve to face a grizzly bear.
Well, how did that go?
Well, we made camp for the night deep in the forest, and I got up early the next morning and hid out by myself to see if I could be the first to bag my bear. I was heading up this narrow trail looking around to see if the sign of any grizzly had been there. I walked around the corner, and lo and behold, came face to face with the biggest, meanest looking bear you ever saw. He wasn't any farther away than you are from me. He had a big scar on his face where he'd been in a fight before, and his breath smelled as bad as your socks. Well, he was surprised to see me as I was to see him, and we just stood there looking at each other for a half a second. Then I came out of my shock and grabbed my gun and fired a quick shot at him. But in my excitement, I totally missed. I don't know how I'll ever know. Well, he growled at me and took a leap at me, but he missed too. I don't know how, being so close, but he jumped right over me.
Well, what did you do then?
Well, I got the heck out of there. I ran all the way back to camp and hid in the cabin. After a while, I got over my shakes and I decided I better go out and practice my short shooting in case that ever happened again. So I grabbed my gun and I walked out of camp a ways and found a spot to do some short shooting. I loaded my gun and was about to shoot when I heard something in the bushes beside me. I snuck over and looked through the bushes, and I was amazed.
What did you see?
There was that grizzly bear that I'd seen that morning. He was hopping all over the place. He was practicing his short jumping.
Enough with the sports. I want to tell you about the letter I got from Uncle Frank.
Well, he's a famous breeder, isn't he?
Yes, he can combine any two animals and get something new. Well, he lives in Racine, Wisconsin. You know what Racine is famous for?
No.
Chicken racing.
What?
Chicken racing. You've never heard of the famous Racine races? I can't believe it.
So what did it got to do with your Uncle Frank?
Well, Uncle Frank decided that he would breed a chicken that would be sure to win the International Racine Chicken Race. So he crossed a chicken with a jackalope.
Wait a minute. There's no such thing as a jackalope. That's just a fake legend.
There is now. My uncle invented it last year. As I was saying, my uncle crossed a chicken with a jackalope and came up with chickens with 4 legs. And boy, were they fast. They could outrun most cars. My uncle's dogs were afraid to come out of the house because the chickens would run them down and peck them on the tail. Uncle Frank was sure they would win that race by a mile.
Did he call them chickalopes?
Wait a minute. If the chickens had 4 legs, would the judges let them into the race?
Uncle Frank never found out.
What?
They were so fast that Uncle Frank couldn't catch any of them to enter them in the race.
If you want to talk about relatives, let me tell you about my cousin Phil, the famous explorer. He traveled all over the world and found something that nobody else has ever, and I mean ever, seen before.
What was that?
An honest politician.
That's it. I'm pretty gullible. I can believe fish stories or even racing chickens. But you'll never get me to believe that.
Me neither. I think it's time to go to work.
What we're going to do is,
I don't have my papers.
the last skit we're going to do is called Joe the Bartender. It takes place in any typical small-town bar in America. Of course, I know none of you have ever been in one of those.
How you doing? What can I get you?
Cold beer.
There. So, how's life treating you?
Not too bad, I guess.
You don't sound too convincing.
Well, things at work are getting complicated.
How so?
I do construction, and I spent the day trying to get a building inspector happy.
They get picky sometimes, I hear.
Yeah, they got all these rules and guidelines, and you must follow them. They're making new ones every day. It's hard to keep up with them all. I just wish for the good old days when you just went out and built a good buildings without the government telling you how to do it.
You're not the only one who longs for the good old days. I wish for good old days here, too.
What do you mean?
Well, things were better in the good old days. Everything was more clear-cut. You knew where you stood in those days.
I still don't follow. See that guy?
Yeah. See that guy? Down there at the end of the bar? In the old days, we wouldn't let his kind in here. Now the government says I have to serve him and be nice to him at the same time. I long for the days when a man's business was his business and nobody could tell you how to run
That
it.
guy?
Or who you had to serve.
That guy?
That guy right, yeah, just look at him. Sitting there all smug like he belongs with us. It's a disgrace. I'll be the end of me.
What do you mean?
Well, when my regular customers see what kind of people are coming in here, they'll quit coming. Who knows what kind of a bar I'll end up with? They should make those people drink with their own kind. I wouldn't even want him in my house. There's something not normal about him.
I guess everybody has to live.
Well, not around me. I can't imagine what it would be like if I had to be around him all the time.
I may be dumb, but I need to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
I've been watching him a lot. I can't figure out what you're talking about. What's wrong with him?
What's wrong with him? Just look at him. It's obvious.
Well, I've been watching him. I don't see anything wrong. Is he using terrible language and bothering your other customers?
No.
Is he wearing dirty clothes?
No.
Does he pick his nose?
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
Well, look at him. It's obvious. Can't you see it? See what?
He drinks beer with his left hand.
He what?
He holds his beer in his left hand. It's disgusting. I can barely stand to watch it.
Hi, Daddy.
Oh, hi. How's my favorite daughter?
I'm your only daughter.
So what do we owe this, the honor of your presence? You just miss me too much?
No, I have a surprise for you.
A surprise?
Yes, I want you to meet my new boyfriend.
Where is he?
He's right there at the end of the bar. Isn't he cute?
Yeah, I guess so.
He'll be coming over to our house a lot from now on.
I need a beer.
Gee, Joe, you know what this means?
No, what?
Well, if things work out, your grandkids could drink with their left hands too.
I don't even want to think about it.
Joe,
What?
look at that. You're drinking with your left hand.
Shut up.
Oh my gosh.